New coach at Bryant, we'll meet him tonight.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
There's a lot of hoopla around the URI, what's going to happen to replace Hurley type of thing. Will it be David Cox? Will it be Rick Pitino? Will it be all of that? In the midst of all of that, there was a significant hire at Bryant University as well, and Jared Grasso is the new coach there, replacing Tim O'Shea. As you know, Tim was an occasional guest here, and the easiest interview I had in Rhode Island. It was one question, and we were good. We'll see if Coach Grasso is as glib as former Coach O'Shea, but he certainly has a vision for that new program there. And as you know, 80–90% of the time around here, we're knocking around the issues of the day and trying to reflect on the quality of life in town. But really all I want to do is talk hoops. So we actually have two coaches scheduled, both the new Bryant coach and David Cox on Friday evening of this week. So, and Hurley is texting me all the time. I want to pop up, but I'm kind of busy. But when it all clears, it'll never clear up for Dan Hurley. But I would imagine he'll be here soon. And of course, we're overdue for Cooley as well. So I got to get my basketball fix. In the meantime, welcome in. Nice to have you. Let's just check in on some of the issues of the day. The president obviously is feeling the heat in a big, big way. Headlines running all over the world. New York Times more or less captures it, and here's CBS's version of yesterday's wild events.
President Trump appeared to muse about firing special counsel Robert Mueller during a meeting with military leaders Monday.
Many people have said you should fire him. Again, they found nothing.
The president's anger came after learning the FBI had raided the business and residences of his personal attorney, Michael Cohen. He's under investigation for possible bank fraud, campaign finance violations, and other potential crimes.
It's frankly a real disgrace. It's an attack on our country in a true sense.
During the Monday raids, FBI investigators seized emails, financial documents, and client communications, possibly including communications with President Trump himself. That prompted the president's tweets this morning. Attorney-client privilege is dead. A total witch hunt.
The FBI likely would not have been able to get search warrants to raid the president's personal attorney without the approval of Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General.
Rosenstein is in charge of the investigation after Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself, based on advice from the Ethics Department.
He should have certainly let us know if he was going to recuse himself, and we would have put a different Attorney General in.
The president does not have the authority to fire Mueller, but he can order Rosenstein to remove him.
Will Rod Rosenstein keep his job?
Thank you all very much.
Mueller can only be fired for good cause, such as misconduct, dereliction of duty, or conflict of interest.
Now look, the term raid is being used here often, and it's accurate, but remember, it's a search warrant, and a federal judge had to take a good hard look at this case, and there's got to be probable cause. And whether this is directly involved with Russian intervention or Stormy Daniels or a combination of both, who knows? But I think it was a deft move by Bob Mueller to kind of kick this over to the U.S. Attorney. And by the way, the U.S. Attorney is a Giuliani protege, number one, and gave Donald Trump $5,400 in the last couple of election cycles. So this whole notion that there's a grand conspiracy all out to get Donald Trump just doesn't fly if you pay attention to the real facts. Of course, the president is weaving his own version of fake news. How this squeezes down on him is anybody's guess, but you know, even though the pressure is on, you don't make those speeches in front of generals when you're trying to figure out what to do in response to Syria. The wheels are off. There's no doubt about it. Keep praying for our country. Moving on to things happening here in our own hometown. This is not good for a governor who's looking for re-election. Audit is a real bad word for her right now. The whole social services situation is a complete mess. Eyewitness News has the latest.
Some Medicaid-eligible newborns in Rhode Island aren't getting the coverage they qualify for.
We have for quite some time had some issues with, as you said, both enrolling and determining eligibility for newborns.
The finding is one of many deficiencies outlined in the state's audit for fiscal year 2017.
Fortunately, those issues have not impeded access to care. They really relate to payment for newborns. So we are focused on ensuring that families receive access to care while ensuring that providers on the back end get the payments that they're entitled to.
Those advance payments total $6.5 million, according to the audit. Rhode Island Medicaid Director Patrick Teague says the feds haven't threatened any fines over the state's noncompliance. But that's not Medicaid's only issue. The audit also revealed a 16,000 person difference between two computer systems, the eligibility system known as UHIP and the payment system.
In certain cases, sometimes individuals have eligibility who perhaps should not, and in other cases, individuals who don't have eligibility should. And we're working to resolve all of those. As of today, we've worked that difference down to 7,400. So we've made really significant progress. We won't be done until we work down every single case to ensure that the payment system and the eligibility system are completely matched up.
Teague said he does not have an estimate for Medicaid's overpayments or underpayments that have been made due to system issues.
I don't know what the recognition level of the constituency is for this problem that the governor has in administrating, but I'll tell you, just a general political audit of her hands-on recognition of some of the financial issues throughout her administration is not a good one. So that's why she's locked in at 42%, in addition to not being able to communicate very well with everybody about what her vision happens to be. Meanwhile, the slew of candidates for governor continues to grow, and I don't know, I should have taken some acid today to be able to understand what Giovanni Ferrosi was trying to tell us. The Republican candidate for governor, I don't know, he had a Facebook Live 1049 restaurant presentation. We have some, you've seen Giovanni before here on the program. We're going to invite him back in perhaps tomorrow, perhaps the next day. We're trying to juggle some candidates for governor right now, but he gave this presentation that frankly 12 minutes in, my head was spinning. I had no idea what he was talking about. I think he did, but more or less he's going to run his campaign on introducing blockchain technology into our economy, and we'll be the only state in the country leading in that. And I don't know what the benefits are, and I don't know if anybody even understands what the heck it is. I mean, half the people in the state don't even know what the internet is yet. So this is really kind of kooky stuff. Of course, he's running on the Republican side against Patricia Morgan and Alan Fung. In the meantime, former Republican Joe Trillo burped out an ad yesterday on WPRO, and this immigration thing and I'm Trump Jr. in Rhode Island thing that Joe has kind of, I don't know, modeled himself over is causing him to lose his mind a little bit too. Here's what he said to Matt Allen on WPRO radio yesterday.
You think the governor of the state of Rhode Island should be arrested by the Justice Department?
If she's protecting illegal immigrants that are violating federal law, I think she should be arrested. She's breaking the law like anybody else.
We need leaders who are serious. We need leaders who understand the nuances between federal and state law, the intersection, the conflict, and the confusion. We don't need people running around talking about arresting their opponents who are incumbents for reasons that make absolutely no rational legal sense. I love Joe, have for a long time, but he also needs to be checked. So you sit there and you ask yourself, can Governor Raimondo be beaten? I don't know. It's going to require a level of sanity from the people who want to take her job. That's all I have on the news front. I need a basketball Jones. Give me a headline here. Here's the new guy. He is ready to rock and roll. Congratulations, Coach.
Thanks, Dan.
Good to have you aboard. Welcome to Rhode Island. That's a little preview of the news of the day. And believe me, we're not going to ask you for any analysis, but I will ask you this. Have you figured this joint out yet? Forget the basketball. We'll get to that next segment. Have you figured this place out yet?
Just trying to figure it out and keep my head above water right now.
It's going to take you, well, heck, I've been here 18 years, and I'm just starting to get a little whiff of what it really is. So, by the way, it doesn't matter how long you're here, you're only going to be visiting. Us New York guys, we think you'll find that out when it comes to Rhode Island. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I asked you at the press conference the other day about what a peak moment is like in the coaching world. Your first head coaching job, I'm sure, defines it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something you, as a son of a coach, something since a young age you dream about and talk about and work for. And to have the opportunity here at Bryant with President Makeley and Bill Smith and such great leadership, couldn't be more excited for myself and my family.
That school has done great work here. Was that an impact on your decision, its role in this community, and the growth that it has had academically and beyond?
Absolutely. I mean, what President Makeley has done is unbelievable. And Bill Smith's vision for the athletic department, I think, is something that really excited me. And after sitting down with them and kind of hearing their vision for the future of both the school and the athletic department and our basketball program, I think it was something that really excited me, and it was something my family really bought into and really excited about.
Well, cool. All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the coach's background, his vision for Bryant University, and all the challenges that are present in collegiate basketball today. In the meantime, I just want to remind you, if you want to put all of your banking stuff in the palm of your hand, and most of us do in this world of getting all the answers really quickly, try the Card Valet app with Navigant Credit Union, online at navigantcu.org. Remember, NCUA. Be right back.
I'm going to make those guys understand that they're not going to have a harder working guy who cares about them more than myself, and I'm going to be in their corner. And it's about building relationships, and that's not going to happen overnight, but I'm going to spend a ton of time with them and make sure I'm around them, and they understand what I'm about and what I'm looking for. And I think there should be some excitement about a change and the vision moving forward of, again, building a championship program.
Coach's comments at his introduction on campus last week. You're actually meeting some of the guys for the first time there, aren't you?
Yep.
It's it's got to be a really exciting time, but for the players who are without a coach there for a few months, I'm sure it's a real nervous time for them, huh? What do you do to calm a team and keep everything kind of stable?
What I did was start workouts immediately and kind of show them how hard we're going to work. I met with all those guys.
Is there a window right now where you're allowed to legally work out?
Yeah, so we started. Yeah, we started the day after my press conference, and I've met with all those guys and tried to spend as much time as I can with them. Kind of there is an anxiety in not knowing who your coach is going to be, and you can play for someone who didn't recruit you. So I think I met with them, was kind of help them understand what I'm all about and kind of what my priorities are and the way I want to build my program. In the meantime, we've been on the floor quite a bit, working and showing them how hard we need to work.
How long are you allowed to work them out in the spring?
We get 2 hours of basketball on the floor. You have 8 hours total, so it's like 6 hours strength and conditioning, 2 hours of basketball. So
enough to get a glimpse?
Trying to cram as much as we can into 2 hours and kind of get a look, and for me to be able to evaluate some of those guys and how they'll fit and what we need to do recruiting-wise to finish up the recruiting class. So it's been a good 2 weeks, but to be able to be around them, get to know them off the floor, and also have the opportunity to be with them on the floor, see them in the weight room, kind of understand what makes them tick and understand what my expectations are for a work ethic and a culture, and I think they're starting to learn that.
Talk to me about where you think Bryant sits in the New England landscape here. I mean, here in the state, obviously, you know, PC has got the cultural and fan base lead. You know, URI has made significant gains. Brown's got a solid constituency, and Bryant's been, you know, the institution has gained incredible recognition. The basketball program is been a little bit of a roller coaster amidst some real growth in lacrosse, and the football program has grown. And do you think about the Rhode Island landscape and where you want to be and how much noise you want to make and how much marketing you want to do of the program and being the face of it now? What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be part of the community, and that's one of the things I talked about early on. I want to be a fabric of not only the Smithfield community, but of the state, and I want people to know that, you know, we're trying to put this program on the map and turn it into a championship program. I think initially that's going to start with me being active and being seen and being a face in the community. And at the end of the day, it's about, you know, winning some basketball games and turning the program into somewhere where there's an excitement about the program and fans and students want to be in the gym and want to pack our building. And again, a lot of that starts with winning. And
there's some video there of some footage from this year. That particular ball game that we're showing does not have a big crowd in it, but there was a run there that Tim O'Shea had. It's about 3 or 4 seasons ago now, where I can remember sitting in there and the kids are all wearing black and white shirts, and I think it was a championship game with Mount St. Mary's to qualify in for. Anyway, the place was a veritable zoo. I would suggest that sometimes smaller facilities packed to capacity are even a more difficult place to play than big arenas. Yes?
Absolutely. I mean, I've coached a play at Iona. If you came to an Iona Manhattan game, you'd see fans. It would be an SRO crowd, great buzz, great environment, and that's what I plan on building here. And I think it's something like you talked about. I remember watching Bryant Sacred Heart, first-round conference tournament, home game for Bryant.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And the place was a zoo. Joe DeSantis, my former college coach, was doing the game on TV, and the place was a zoo. Great crowd, great environment. I think they made a three-pointer at the buzzer to win it, Joe O'Shea, and the place went nuts. And that's why I envision it being every game. And I'm going to be on campus doing everything I can to try and get students to come to games, try and get their support. And I think it's a style of play people really enjoy watching.
Meaning?
Playing fast, up-tempo, pressing, playing 94 feet,
Doesn't
trying to score the ball.
almost everybody play fast now? There's this whole new, there's still 5 guys on the floor, but there's no longer, a definition, it seems, for, it's like the smaller guys and then the big. And everybody else just kind of moves around the floor in a much more fluid fashion. The old-fashioned forward is kind of a old term, it seems to me. I mean, I watch these games from up close and still try to figure out what the heck's going on out there some days.
See, I think everyone talks about playing fast and says they want to play fast. I've been blessed to work for a boss who has done for years, from 20 years in high school to coaching in college, has had a program where he's always played fast, played up-tempo, which is why statistically we're a top 10 in the country at some point, probably every offensive category. It's the way we plan on playing here. So in recruiting, everyone talks about playing fast, and this is what we're going to do. I've seen it work, and I think it's something I can teach. I think it's a style of play kids like to play, but don't understand how hard they have to work to play at that pace for 40 minutes. So it's something that's going to be a change, it's going to be adjustment with how hard you have to work, the shape you need to be in. But once you're able to do it, it's an exciting style, and I think it's something.
So is playing fast street ball?
No, playing fast is a pace, getting the ball out of the net, getting the ball up the floor in 4 seconds. We'll scrimmage with a 10-second shot clock. We'll do a lot of things that will make our guys have to sprint their lanes. And because a lot of the drills and the concepts we have, you have to run. So your pace is going to be faster. You're still taking good shots, taking high percentage shots.
How do you train basketball players to play fast? I mean, is there a lot of weightlifting and all that kind of stuff with conditioning? And is there distance running? Is there stuff going on outside the floor itself, or is it all in the gym?
I mean, we will do some other conditioning stuff, but the biggest thing, it's a mentality, and it's the way you practice. Everything we do is in the full court. Everything we do is fast. So our practices are fast. We go from drill to drill fast. We get into practice fast. So everything we do is at a fast tempo. So your guys start to adjust it. Everything we do every day is fast. And I think it's been new to them these last 2 weeks how much full court work they have to do, the condition you have to be in, to be able to do it.
I feel like I want to sprint to the commercial. We're going so fast. Do they eat fast too?
They're going to learn to.
They're going to eat fast. There's a lot. We've got to speed up. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
I mean, basketball-wise, going to the, at Ohio, going to the NCAA tournament, almost beating Florida, winning at North Carolina, here beating Boston College. We beat a Lehigh team with the kid McCullum, who's now one of the best players in the NBA. But more than anything, honestly, it's the relationships I've formed with these kids and hearing back from them years later and, getting invited to their weddings, knowing that they're doing well in life. That is by far the greatest satisfaction I take from coaching.
A guy that you're replacing, Tim O'Shea, who had an interesting run there at Bryant. And by the way, he was the easiest interview I've ever had here. I would average 1.5 questions per half-hour show with him. It was, so you're doing very well. You're fast, but he was fast and long. And I like to kid Tim about that. But he's a congenial guy. You build your own operation here. The personality of the program changes with the head coach. But what did he leave behind that you think was an asset?
Obviously had a great run here. Taking it from Division II to Division I is a very difficult thing to do, and I saw it as a player. My first year at Quinnipiac was Quinnipiac's first year Division I. So that transition, and he's built a program. He's built a program that has had some success, and obviously had some struggles this year with injuries and different things, but he had such a long run as a head coach and so much success over time. I think he was a phenomenal head coach.
Hard to lift a group of kids that only won 3 games last year up? Is it hard to do that?
No, I think culturally we're going to change some things, and again, it's going to be how hard we're going to work every day. I haven't talked too much about wins and losses to them. I've just talked about the process.
Are you watching the bigger news in the collegiate basketball, coaching arena with all the controversy and such? And do you have a thought on some of the enforcement that may or may not come down?
I think it's so vague right now that until those guys go to trial and some things come out, there's leaks here and there, but when it's the FBI handling it, I'm sure there's a lot going on that we don't know about, and you hear little bits and pieces, but I don't think we're really going to know what's going to happen from it and what kind of what the results will be until those guys go to trial and some of that stuff becomes public knowledge.
Tim would reflect from time to time on the business of the business. You have a philosophy about the business of the business?
I mean, I think it's part of what we do in recruiting, and with the sneakers companies being so involved. I think it's something that we're all involved with to some extent. You're going to sneaker AAU tournaments, you're recruiting from AAU teams that are sponsored by certain sneaker companies. So it is part of what we do on a daily basis, and it's part of the job.
Talk to me about the pressure that a basketball program at any school has to be kind of like the front door of the university. Ron Makeley sat here a couple of weeks ago talking about academic issues, but when we touched on the basketball program, he said, hey, listen, it's the front porch. It's how people understand the school sometimes.
I've seen it firsthand. I've been at Iona the last 8 years, going to 5 NCAA tournaments, 2 NITs in 7 years. I think it's something that put Iona on the map, the stretch we've had. And, being able to build a program and having a chance to go to an NCAA tournament, and everyone's hearing Bryant's name, and Selection Sunday, you hear Bryant University, the things it does for your admissions, for the like you said, you're the front porch of the university, and having the opportunity to build a program, and then once you have success, I think it's huge for the school.
Your league, the Northeast Conference, is an interesting one. It's one of those one-bid leagues for the most part, unless some anomaly occurs, right? But I think after this particular NCAA March Madness exercise with University of Maryland, Baltimore County upsetting Virginia. By the way, I had Virginia winning the whole thing. So how about a bracket buster there, right?
Killed your bracket.
Holy moly. But I think it probably put a skip in the step of every low major and mid major program in the country, and especially the teams that play in Bryant's league, to say, you know what? You never know what we can do if we. So no, you're not just, and I say this with respect, you're not the JV. You don't have to look at this as the JV versus the varsity of Division I. Now that seal has been broken. You agree?
Absolutely. And listen, if you're not dreaming about going to the NCAA tournament and winning games in the NCAA tournament, then you shouldn't be in this profession. And as a player, you shouldn't be playing. I think that's something that, as a kid growing up and as a coach, you go to sleep every night thinking about having the opportunity to do those kind of things. Then you see it happen this year with UMBC and the upsets you see every year. It's possible, and it's something that can happen.
What's the big difference between the league that you play in with Bryant and even the league that URI plays in, the Atlantic 10 and PC in the Big East? What is the cosmetic difference in terms of the level of performance?
I mean, I think definitely the front court size and athleticism. You're just bigger, stronger, more athletic at that level, especially the front court. Front courts, being at Iona, we played Rhode Island this year, and their front court size and toughness and athleticism was at a different level than ours. So I think it's really a size and athleticism thing. I think the guards at those levels at times are very similar. I think the front courts are really what separate teams.
But you're looking for the diamond in the rough or two, right? That can change a program almost immediately, yes?
Of course. I mean, that's what we need to do. Is you're always, I think, in our league 2 or 3 players away from competing for a championship. So you got to find the right guys, and at this level, it's about evaluation. You're not recruiting against the Dukes and Kentuckys of the world. You're trying to find maybe a kid who has no Division I offers, a kid who is under the radar for whatever reason and fits your system.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Being often guests, we love to get away from Washington and Smith Hill and talk hoops from time to time. We'll be able to see the ball games, of course, and we wish you all the best of runs at Bryant University. Have a good summer.
I appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
Good to have you. All right, when we come back, final word. Stay with us. So we wish Jared Grasso the best of luck again on a basketball level. Getting my fix this week. Coming up on the Friday show, the new URI head coach David Cox. Wink, wink. We're actually recording that program today. In the meantime, tomorrow we'll probably touch in on the base of some of these gubernatorial candidates who are beginning to kick up a lot of dust and make a lot of noise because 'tis the season. In the meantime, we'll see you on the radio tomorrow at 3 until 6 on WPRO. Thanks so much for tuning in. Good night.